All right, good Sunday afternoon, everybody. I'm Jared Smith with the Carolina Weather Group, bringing you continuous coverage of tornado warnings in the Carolinas. We've been pretty quiet today so far, but we're starting to see tropical storm or tropical depression Claudette will be a storm later. Starting to see uh, some of the effects of that being felt across the area in a couple rain bands. So let's just get started on the radar here. First one we're going to go to is in is just outside of Wagner, in the Columbia CWA. Let me switch the radar here, and this is a decent little. It's tiny. I mean, this is very much a tropical tornado setup if you've ever seen one. I mean, again, this is not the most. This is certainly not the most impressive tornado you'll ever see on radar, but there is something here. It's running parallel to I-20. It is heading towards Highway 178, crossing South Carolina 39 right now. Relatively low population here, but let me look at a different source of radar just real quick, just so I can get an understanding of some of the other locations that may be in the way of this thing. But it looks like, let me do density 2. I'm going to regret that. And yeah, so it looks like this is a relatively uninhabited part of town, but uninhabited part of the kind of the central Savannah River region, and then getting into the Midlands here. But again, this is this tornado warning was just updated. It removed Saluda County, so now it is crossing 39, South Carolina 39. And then let's see if we can't get another road indicator on here. Again, these are probably just some, again, just some surface streets here. Again, this does not necessarily look incorporated, but the fact is that when you have this kind of setup, you're going to be running into, you're still going to be running into plenty of places which are, sparsely populated, but, they all, everyone matters, and we've got to make sure that we're on the air for them. So again, Highway 178. This will be there in about 15 minutes or so. Here's your little hook right here. We're looking from the Columbia radar here, and you can see this. This is as tiny of a supercell as you'll ever see. This is certainly smaller than the ones that we're used to seeing, but there's your little inflow notch right here. There's your rear flank. There's your rotation right there. It's still a radar indicated tornado according to the National Weather Service in Columbia. We'll switch back to velocity here. And again, this is not exactly a velocity signature that screams, violent tornado. However, it could put down a quick spin up before you know it. And so with these tropical tornadoes, usually very shallow and very fast to spin up. So that's why the tornado warning is out. This is headed northeast at 25, is about 9 miles north of Aiken State Park. So again, this is for Aiken and Lexington counties, running parallel to I-20. This is not going to cross I-20 in the near future. But again, we're looking at this potentially crossing Highway 178, kind of splitting the difference between Pelion and Batesville, Batesburg and Leesville. This is Wagner. You're okay. Again, if you're in Saluda County, you're out of the woods on this one. This will be going for This will be going until about 3 o'clock, so another about 12 minutes or so. So let's go to the next tornado warning. We have actually we lost. Oh, no, there it is. Thought we got away with one, but no, this one is in the Morehead City area here. Let me switch the radar. Let me see if I can get a good look at radar. This should do. There's your hook heading right down. Looks like this is heading right down North Carolina State Route 125 into the town of Williamston right now. We'll go in. Let's discuss that again. This is a radar indicated tornado. Potential here for a brief tornado to pop up just right south of what you would consider downtown Williamston. Here's your rotation. Keep in mind that the radar is south of us, and so we have the winds going away from the radar and winds going towards the radar. There's your rotation right here, moving right over Williamston right now, maybe a little to the south of it. So again, if you're anywhere near Highway 1364, where it intersects with Highway 17 and North Carolina Route 125, you're under the gun right now. This is where the trouble is going to be for the moment. This is moving east at 20 miles per hour. This tornado warning also goes until 3 o'clock. Obviously, if this continues, they will need to issue a new one downstream. Also worth noting that this is fairly well defined, but there may be something trying to get going here south of Windsor. When we had the velocity display up, let me pull that back. There is a little bit, you can see a little pockmark of rotation here setting up. And that is beginning to show some signs of rotating as well. So again, if you were on State Route 308 south of Windsor, here's a business bypass 17 right here. This looks like it's going to stay south of there, but anywhere on State Route 308 to State Route 45, certainly something to watch. To see if that develops. And then we may have a couple other circulations trying to get going. So this looks like this is about to get really hopping here in North Carolina in very short order. There is another circulation beginning to develop. Now this is in the general vicinity of going to be moving in the general vicinity of Beargrass. It's about ready to cross State Route 30. No warning on this yet. I will tell you that it does have that rotating look as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something warned on that. And finally, near Farmville, this is headed in the general direction of Greenville, North Carolina. This is generally north of US 13, kind of splitting the difference between US 13 and US 264. Again, no warning on this yet. We don't really see that good-looking reflectivity signature that we would typically associate. But then again, when velocities here, we certainly have some things that we need to be keeping a close eye on. So again, tornado safety rules in these sorts of situations: lowest floor of your site-built structure, home. Most of us don't have basements, so that's probably not going to be a thing for us. But again, get to that lowest floor, away from windows, put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Bring helmets, bring mattresses if you want. I mean, just something to protect you while you have a little bit of time. So while you're in your tornado shelter. And again, these are going to be moving very quickly today. So you're going to be moving very quickly, and they're going to spin up and spin down very quickly. So again, with situations like this, we tend to say that we want you to, be ready to move to shelter as quickly as possible. So let's get a let's see here. I'm just iterating through the radars here. We still have so again, we have the one tornado warning in Williamston, North Carolina right now, and we're going to dive south. We're going to go back to Columbia, and we have a second tornado warning still ongoing here for the next few minutes. For parts of Aiken and Lexington counties. Again, this is moving into an unincorporated part of Lexington County, but roughly splitting the difference between Wagner, Monetta, Batesburg. But you can see here that we have, there's your hook echo right here still, again, and with these tropical systems, they are just not, this is not the most impressive tornado signature you will ever see. But these things can spin up and spin down in a hurry, and so that's why we need everybody to be. If you've got that warning alert on your phone, if your phone pinged or you're in this, you're otherwise in this polygon, you should be taking shelter and staying in shelter until you get the all clear here. This warning is going to go for another 7 minutes, and again, this storm is approaching Highway 178 between Pelion and Batesburg and Leesville. It's running parallel to US 1. It's running parallel to US 20, to Interstate 20 rather, and is headed in the general direction of Red Bank and South Congaree. However, you're not in the tornado warning right now. So just something to keep an eye on. And again, this is not looking particularly interesting at the moment. So that's a good thing. We're not seeing too much in the way of, we've not heard any damage reports so far that I can surmise from this, but we will need to watch this. We'll need to watch this very carefully, as again, these things can spin up and spin down very fast. So we're just going to bounce between the two here. So but first let's take a wider view. Here's Central Carolinas here. If you're looking for where Claudette is, it looks like, based off of the radar circulation and everything. Again, we'll need to do another surface analysis here shortly. We're starting to see this move into generally around the upstate of South Carolina. This is Claudette is going to move into the Claudette is going to move east and northeast through through the Midlands into the PD, and eventually emerge off of the North Carolina coast as a tropical storm. Now, what you'll note is that the Hurricane Center actually has the forecast for this to become a tropical storm while it is still over land, which is a very interesting thing. I've never seen that before. And so we're going to certainly want to see if that is something that's going to happen. So again, something to keep in mind as we go. Again, that part really doesn't have too much bearing on our overall impacts. You get something that classifies as a tropical storm versus a depression. Again, really going to have any impacts on, it's not really going to have too many bearings on what impacts we feel. So again, something to watch, but nothing that, but it really in the grand scheme of things is not going to make a whole big difference as to what we experience. So again, looking at this, looking back in North Carolina here, this is Williamston. This is south of Williamston. Here's your here is an area of rotation as seen from the Morehead City radar. This is just crossed 1364, and this is going to pass just north of Jamesville. And I suspect that since this rotation is keeping up, I wouldn't be surprised to see that warning get reissued downstream. Also seeing another area of rotation, a little bit broader, near approaching the town of Beargrass here. Just crossed, looks like it just crossed State Route 30 in North Carolina. And then here's another broad area of rotation. This is splitting the difference between Windsor and Plymouth, and this is headed towards Route 308. These two are not tornado warned. This one in south of Williamston is, and will be until about 3 o'clock. I'm going to set this back in motion here. And you can see that, maybe it's not looking quite as good with the hook echo there. And again, we're in a bit of a radar no man's land here. But what we still have, that was something happening there. So a bit of good news there. It made me jump. The Weather Service chat. It makes a really harsh EAS noise when anybody mentions the T word in there. And sure enough, we got a mention of the T word, but it's some good news here is that this warning, Weather Service Columbia is going to allow the warning on this storm south of closer to Wagner and Batesburg-Leesville. So they're going to let this warning expire at 3 o'clock. This storm is obviously not looking as good on radar. It's not, we just took a little bit of a peek at it earlier. Not looking as good, not looking as certainly interesting from a rotational standpoint. So that's good news. So that means that we can really start to focus now on the situation in eastern North Carolina, where we have one storm that's tornado warned at the moment, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these extended downstream. So again, let's take a wide view of eastern North Carolina real quick, and we have a couple lines of thunderstorms here. And there's a little bit of and so here you have effects from Claudette, but we also have maybe a little bit of a boundary setting up here that's helping to enhance some of the wind shear towards the surface. So we've seen a couple reports of wind damage here. It looks like from MPING. We have a line of storms going through Raleigh right now. Pretty decent thunderstorms. These are all lifting north and east. But right now, the area of concern is exiting Williamston. So we're zoomed in on that right now. This is exiting Williamston. You can still kind of see a little bit of a hook to that. So we'll see if Morehead City reissues downstream. They've not given us any indication that that's going to happen just yet, but I would not be surprised to see that happen, given that this still seems to have its structure. You can still see a little bit of a weaker echo region here, inflow notch, switch over to velocity. And yeah, that velocity couplet is looking pretty good. We're looking from the Raleigh right now, and there's another one right here that we're certainly going to want to look at as well. Let me switch back to Morehead City. We're just bouncing between radars here because, in this part of North Carolina, it is tough for us to get a really good angle with any one. So we need to bounce through a couple. We're going to have to just use a couple here and try and track this as best as we can. So again, this rotation is actually leaving the tornado warning area. It's leaving the polygon. So we'll see if they reissue downstream. We've got another rotation with a little bit of lightning perking up in it, very near Beargrass. And then and then west of Greenville, kind of a broader area of rotation. Again, the only one that's warned is this one in Williamston right now. So we'll set this into motion here. You can see how it crossed over 1364, now headed north of Jamesville. And it looks like the tornado warning is they're going to let the tornado warning go. And it looks like, let's see, it looks like, and I believe that we're now getting into, I want to say we're getting into Blacksburg's territory a little bit here too. Let me just check another source here, but I think we're getting into Blacksburg's territory at this point. Yes, we are. So Blacksburg, the Weather Service in Blacksburg has not extended to, they're deciding not to extend the tornado warning into, any further east right now. They have a special weather statement up on it. Put this up here. So strong thunderstorm near Williamston, moving east at 25. It's going to stay over rural areas of southeastern Bertie County, including Woodard. So again, this is Weather Service in Blacksburg currently choosing not to warn on this, presumably because it sounds like we haven't had any reports of anything further downstream, which is good news. We want to warn on these and make sure that people get to safety, but it's probably okay when we don't hear that there is any actual tornado down. So that is good. So what that means is that across the Carolinas right now, we have no red polygons, no active tornado warnings, but the Carolina Weather Group, Curtis, is we get off the air, and then we get off the air once these all clears are given, and then they get reissued downstream. And so what we're going to do is we're going to hang out here for a few minutes. I'm particularly still interested in this Williamston storm, something to watch. If it, again, if that rotation begins to perk back up, then that's something that we're going to certainly be interested in keeping an eye on. And then getting into Beargrass, that is also another area that is certainly suspicious. Again, nothing warned on it, and it's not been warned to this point, but it's certainly an area that I would want to keep an eye on. Let me, I'm looking at another source of radar data here real quick, and I'm just kind of cleaning it up so I can get my bearings with it. And all right, so there it is. And yeah, when I'm looking from, I've got another source of radar over here. When I'm looking at that, I'm looking from Raleigh over here, and yeah, I do see a little sign of spin to the southwest of Beargrass. And this is looking a little higher into the storm. So let me work around that. I'm just going to take a look. That's about 4,000 feet up. So again, we have no warnings on this right now. We have no warnings anywhere in the Carolinas for tornadoes, which is wonderful news, all things considered. This is a decent setup for tornadic activity. Anytime you get a tropical cyclone with the moving through, you get a good transport of moisture. When it breaks in the clouds like we've had today, we've had plenty of breaks in the clouds thus far, especially getting into North Carolina, and then you have a nearby boundary. That'll help kick things up a little bit more. And I think we've had a little bit, we might be getting a little sea breeze assistance here at some point too there. So again, we'll take this, again, we'll talk about this a little bit. Let me switch to another radar source here. Let me switch to Wilmington to give us a general idea of what it's looking like in the eastern half of the Carolinas. At this point, we have some showers and thunderstorms lifting north. We have another line of storms that is beginning to move into South Carolina from Georgia. This is one of the rain bands. This is one of the feeder bands coming in here. And Weather Service in Charleston has a special weather statement out on this for 40 to 55 mile an hour winds. No severe warnings anywhere in the South Carolina low country. However, this band is what we're looking at for potentially starting to bring some heavier rain into the Charleston metro area later this afternoon. High tide is at 4:55 p.m. We want to keep a very close eye on that, because any heavy rain that happens before high tide or right around high tide could certainly contribute to a little bit more of a flooding issue for parts of the downtown Charleston area. So we're keeping an eye on that. We have a new tornado warning. So we have a new tornado warning. This is now just out. Let's see here. Which Weather Service office issued this one? This is GSP. So we have a new tornado warning out. So I told you that this was going to happen, and sure enough, it did. So we have a new tornado warning now, and this is for Union County in North Carolina. And in the Piedmont here, this is a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado 8 miles south of Monroe, moving northeast at 25 miles per hour. Radar indicated Marshville, Wingate, and Sturtevant around 3:30. So again, and also Trinity, be careful here. So again, this is once again, we're in a situation where we have a potential for a brief, weak tornado. And I think the best view that we're going to get of this is going to be from the terminal Doppler out of Charlotte Douglas International Airport. So we're going to set this in motion here. This is a 1 minute scan. And yeah, again, this is one of those things where you get these very subtle areas of rotation, and that's going to be enough to trigger a warning today, because these things can spin up and spin down very fast. And so, again, Marshville, you're in the tornado warning polygon. I would recommend, it's time to get to your lowest floor, get as many walls between you and the outside as possible. If you have a basement, if you may have, this area may have some, you may get lucky here. Be getting into that safe place as this storm moves northeast at 25 miles per hour. So again, using the terminal Doppler obviously is going to have some disadvantages. It can't penetrate through heavy rain very well, but you can kind of make out maybe a little bit of a hook here. I'm probably going to switch to the GSP next rad here in a second. Actually, I'm going to use Columbia. Columbia is going to be closer to this. So again, and this is a kind of a difficult. This is a very difficult radar area, and while that we have the terminal Doppler in Charlotte, it doesn't go very far, and it's not really designed to go too terribly far. So again, here's your circulation. Here's this is what GSP is concerned about right here. Looking from Columbia here, there's your winds going outbound. Columbia radars to the south, winds going inbound. This is roughly over State Route 207 right now. This is going to head towards, looks like this is going to approach the intersection of the junction of 601 and 74 here in the next little bit. So we need folks in Wingate and Marshville in particular to be keeping a very close eye on this for the potential for a brief, weak tornado spinning up. Again, these tropical tornadoes are ludicrously difficult to detect and warn on. You're going to get a lot of false alarms, but but chances are good that you're also going to get one show up. So GSP has a decent look at I'm looking at it from GSP here. Here's your circulation, maybe a little bit better look at it. Again, we're just not in a good spot for radar here. So we're going to do the best we can as this moves northeast at 25. This is the only game in town for tornadoes right now. We do have some rotating cells in eastern that we're going to want to keep an eye on right now, but this is the one that seems to have the most imminent tornado danger as it moves northeast at 25. So again, Monroe, Wingate is just outside of Monroe. Anywhere along Highway 74 between Peachland and Monroe, probably you might want to not be on that road right now. And also Highway 601 heading from North Carolina border up to Monroe. Probably not a good place to be right now on the road, as well as we have a pretty decent thunderstorm here, putting out a good bit of lightning, a good bit of heavy rain. I think the other thing too to stress here is that tornadoes in tropical systems are typically rain wrapped. Do not look for visual confirmation that there is a tornado. You are not going to get it. You are just not going to be able to see it until it's entirely too late. So that's the beauty of Doppler radar, is that we can see inside the rain and we can see which way the winds are blowing. So again, that tornado warning comes out, go ahead, move to that lowest floor, interior room, hall, closet, away from windows, and you're going to be just fine as this moves by. The good news is, again, that these are relatively short-lived. This is not one of those days where we're going to see big, long track tornadoes Not like we typically see. Well, we don't really typically see them here at all, but it is a thing that has happened somewhat with some frequency in recent years. This is not that. I think that's probably the most important takeaway here. But all tornadoes are dangerous. All damaging wind is dangerous. Again, these are putting out quite a bit of lightning as well, and lightning is dangerous. So again, these are some dangerous thunderstorms that are moving northeast into southern North Carolina. So again, taking the wide view here, looking from GSP, and set this into motion here, you can see. You can kind of see probably where that center of circulation is. Just got a text message from a buddy of mine, lives kind of in the Aiken kind of CSRA area, and he sees winds coming. He sees clouds coming from the west. He sees clouds coming from the south. So he is probably very close to that center of circulation right now. And so, so that gives you a general idea of where it is. And it certainly seems like now that the center has crossed the Georgia border, or is in the process of crossing the Georgia border, heading into the upstate and Midlands of South Carolina. Expect Claudette, which I would just say is roughly here, to continue to move northeast, east and northeast this evening, potentially becoming a tropical storm again before it comes off of the North Carolina coast. So we have a new tornado warning just south of Elizabeth City. So I'm going to switch to Blacksburg here. And this is one of those storms that we were talking about earlier that was showing some signs of trouble here. And sure enough, it has tightened up pretty significantly in the last few minutes. So let me get, so here's a tornado warning. Let me get some stats for you on it. This goes until 3:45 p.m. For southeastern Perkins County and southeastern Chowan County in northeastern North Carolina. Severe thunderstorm over Snug Harbor, about 7 miles south of Hertford, moving northeast at 25 miles an hour. Radar indicated tornado. This is a pretty good looking signature here, as you can see. And as this gets out over the water, this will be a water spout. Again, you're getting into some of the sounds here. You're getting in very coastal areas. And this is going to slide south of Highway 17. But again, that's a pretty decent looking rotational signature, probably one of the better ones we've seen today thus far. And this is moving northeast at 25. So again, this is going to be south of Elizabeth City, Camden, and it should split the difference. If it, again, this is going to be one of those things where it's up and down and up and down. So it should split the difference between Corolla and Duck. However, I need everybody to, if you're in this warning polygon, if you got buzzed on this, be sure to take appropriate action to protect yourself. Lowest floor, interior room, hallway, closet. Put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Grab closed-toed shoes, grab a helmet, and hang out until you get the all clear. So we have two tornado warnings now, both in North Carolina. One in far eastern North Carolina. This one is, again, this one is going to be south of 17. This is going to be scraping a lot of coastline here. But the next road ahead of it is Route 344. And so this is going to be something to watch here. And there is, let me get that. Give me just a second here. I'm going to make sure that I get you that. And this is going to, and again, this is going to stay, it looks like this is going to stay south of Elizabeth City. But we have an airport. We have an airport here that is also, looks like it's going to be impacted here. Let me make sure that we get the, I think, because they did not mention the airfield in the warning here. And I think that is a pretty good, that is a decent reference point here. So let me just get that for you real quick. Apologies for the delays here, but yeah, so that is Elizabeth City Regional Airport. So this is, they're not in the warning, but this is going to get close to there. This is going to pass very close to Elizabeth City Regional Airport. So something to watch a little bit for the next 30 minutes or so. But again, we've got two of these. We got two of these going on right now, and we have a second tornado warning ongoing. Let's see if we can see it from the terminal Doppler here. Yeah, you have a pretty decent look at the rotational couplet here, and that's about all these are good for. But here's your rotational couplet right now. It's south of Wingate, headed towards Marshville, it looks like. And so again, it's important that if you're on Highway 74 between Peachland and on Monroe right now, that you are getting into a safe place, as we have potential for a brief tornado approaching the towns of Wingate and Marshville. And again, if you are seeing anything, let us know. We always try to get reports into the Weather Service when we can get them. So if you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube or wherever, we would certainly love to know what you're seeing out there. So again, watching this closely as it approaches Wingate and Marshville. And we're just going to need to, it is going to be one of those things where they're just going to spin up and spin down just as quickly. So again, let's bounce back to, we'll bounce back to the Blacksburg radar here. This is south of Elizabeth City, about south of Hertford, Windfall, Woodville, headed in the general direction of the Elizabeth City Regional Airport. So certainly something to watch. But tornado warning now continues here until 3:45. So again, this is not over major incorporated areas. However, I will note that if you're going to be traveling down State Route 344, this is certainly something that you're going to want to keep a fairly close eye on. There's also, it looks like, some county routes in the way as well. County Route 1329, 1300. Again, we're way zoomed in here so you can see this, but right now we do have this rotational couplet potentially going over some populated spots. May not be incorporated, but it does not mean they're not populated. And so this is this passing here right now. This is, let me see if I can't get it's tough to get IDs on these roads when they're relatively when they're relatively minor. But again, this is going to be approaching some of the county routes, 1300, 1329. So folks, this is certainly a situation they're going to want to watch closely. This has been kind of a hot spot for rotation, honestly, today. As we look, we also have a broad rotation setting up just north of Jamesville. This came through Williamston earlier, was tornado warned. They have since let that warning go. We may have another area right around Edenton that might be trying to spin up a little bit right along Highway 17. But again, this guy in the northwest that we're going to pan in the middle on, this is our tornado warned circulation. This is the one that we are most concerned about right here. So again, kind of reset. It is 3:17 p.m. I'm Jared Smith, Carolina Weather Group, continuing coverage on the Carolina Weather Net for tornado warnings in the Carolinas. We have 2 tornado warnings in North Carolina, one of them near Monroe, kind of southeast of the Charlotte metro area, and another one south of Elizabeth City and Hertford in far northeastern North Carolina. Right now, the major metros, you're okay. You have some thunderstorms rolling through, but we do not see any signs of any severe weather in the major metros, which is good for the moment. However, this is one of those days where you get these short-lived pop-up tornadoes that happen in the eastern half circle of tropical cyclones, and we do have Claudette continuing to skirt across the upstate here. We'll switch to Columbia real quick, and take a note that we got a pretty good we've got pretty good rain band approaching Columbia right now, maybe with some gusty winds. So again, if you're in the Columbia metro area, you're gonna have some gusty winds and some heavy rain moving through not too much longer from now. So in the next 30 minutes or so, I'd be getting ready for that. However, there's no sign of any imminent severe weather with this. There was a tornado warning circulation on it earlier, but there are no tornado warnings right now in South Carolina. So hopefully that won't change. Hopefully we'll stay well behaved, but we have to be ready for that to change here. So again, keeping an eye on this. So let's get back to our circulation that is tightening up a little bit now as it gets closer to Monroe and Wingate. So here is Monroe, you're not in the polygon. Wingate and Marshville here. Here's your circulation right here, and this is getting very, very close now to the southern outskirts of roughly. I think we're going to be closer to Wingate than Marshville, but again, keep in mind that radar circulations are looking up into the storm. The actual tornado could be displaced a couple miles, maybe south and east of it. So again, this is the rotating mesocyclone. This is not the tornado itself. So again, if you're in this warning area, if you're in this polygon, and I think we're going to stay with, I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stay with the terminal Doppler because it has the best view of this at this point, and we're getting updates every minute. So that's helpful too. So again, right now, US 74, between Wingate and Marshville, this is not where you want to be at the moment. You probably want to find a place to take shelter for the short term. This is certainly not a place that you're going to want to be for the next few minutes, as we do have this area of rotation that is going to cross over there in about the next 5 to 10 minutes. Let's see. Let's reset here a little bit. This rotation is also going to cross what it looks like to be if I can get any sort of information on what major, well, that's embarrassing, major road this is. I believe this is also going to be, it looks like a little freeway headed, that'll cut off right before Marshville here, tied to 74. So again, just a lot going on here as we continue to watch this. So let me get my maps out real quick and change I'm just making a couple adjustments on my end to go as quickly as we can. We will zoom out of this, and we will, again, we're kind of, this is the hazards of being live sometimes, is that we've got to rapidly look for information, and sometimes more rapid than others. And yeah, so that is going to be, so that is the 74 bypass. So the 74 bypass, this is headed right for the terminus of the 74 bypass between Wingate and Marshville. So again, there's your rotational signature right here. And so there it is. And this is about ready to get towards Wingate and Marshville here. So let's just keep an eye on things. We have the continued tornado warning for Martin County in North Carolina. This is in far eastern North Carolina. Let's go up there real quick. Keep an eye on this. And again, this is affecting areas that are going to be relatively near coastline here. I would not be surprised to see another warning go up to north of Jamesville at some point. This has been pretty persistently rotating. It's been looking pretty good on the last few scans. So that'll be something that we're going to want to watch closely. So lead circulation, this is the one that's been tornado warned. This one continues to move northeast at 25. This could get pretty close to the Elizabeth City Airport if all things remain equal. So that'll be certainly something that we're going to want to keep an eye on here. And then as well in the town of Plymouth, where Highway 32 and 264 come together and meet 64. Something to watch here. Not as well defined, but certainly looking decent just north of Jamesville. Has some lightning with it, which may indicate that it's trying to strengthen a little bit too. So I would keep an eye on this in Plymouth as well. It does have a little bit of a hook to it. And again, this is the storm that came out of Williamston, which was warned earlier. So again, something to watch. No warning there right now. By far, the biggest concern is going to be this storm in Martin County. And this one, this one is spinning pretty good, spinning pretty nicely here. And this is going to be continuing to head northeast, and it has a pretty good signature there as well. So again, if you're anywhere, living along the coast here, and if you use, say, Route 1300, Route 1329, if you're familiar with those roads, that is the next major roadways that it'll be approaching in a matter of minutes. So again, need you to watch there. So again, two storms, completely different parts of the world, it seems like. And so we are going to be bouncing back and forth between these. Now we're looking from the terminal Doppler. This is approaching Marshville. This is a tornadic circulation that's been pretty consistent. Highlighted here for you. This is approaching Marshville now. This is about ready to cross right at the Highway 74 bypass, where 74 and branches off and the bypass picks up. So again, something to watch here very closely as we get between Wingate and Marshville. This is going to move, and this is going to continue to head generally in the direction of Marshville. We still have a bit of a rotational signature on it. Let's see if we can glean anything from the reflectivity. And yeah, and again, the terminal Dopplers are just not good at that. That's just not that's not their bread and butter. So certainly something that we're going to see. So right now, no reports of anything right now. Obviously spotter groups are activating at this point, and they're going to be keeping a close eye on things just to see if we do get any damage reports. But again, this is right around, this is passing pretty much right in the vicinity of Marshville right now. So if you're in Marsh, this is time to take cover. This is the time to be in that lowest floor, interior room, hallway, closet. Because this could be a brief tornado, but a tornado is a tornado, and these things can cause problems regardless. So keeping an eye on this in Marshville. Looks like the circulation is going to stay just to the east of Wingate at this point. Again, it looks like it's about ready to cross Highway 74 right around where the bypass starts, and 74 at State Route 205. So there's Marshville, and really the apex of your circulation is going to be right here. So this is a really super zoomed in view. Certainly something that we're going to need to keep an eye on here as well. Let's take a look at it from another radar standpoint. Let's look at it from GSP. This is going to do a little bit better as far as the reflectivity here, and we'll switch to reflectivity. Let that update here again. Yeah, it's really hard to get a good look at it, really, from any of the radars here. This is just a tough spot. I mean, this is a tough spot. Let's look at from Columbia. So the one thing that I'm gathering by looking at all these different radars is that this is very tightly rain wrapped. And so rain wrapped tornadoes, not going to be able to see them. You're just not going to be able to see them. So the important thing to do is to, again, just take the warning seriously, get in the lowest floor, but as many walls between you and the outside as possible. And you're going to be just fine, and you're going to be doing all right. So again, this is getting right into the town of Marshville right now. Again, we'll be interested in any reports that you have. If you want to hit us up on the Carolina Weather Group Facebook page. I'm keeping an eye on the chats over here just to see exactly what's what. And so again, we're going to going back to the radar here. Here's Marshville, Wingate. We have, again, some of those inbounds and outbounds coming together. Maybe not quite as well defined as it was a few minutes ago. But again, these are shallow. These will spin up. These will spin down. And this is the kind of thing that's going to just, this is just the kind of thing that we're going to be dealing with pretty much for the rest of the afternoon, it looks like. So again, let's get back to the Blacksburg radar. This tornado, the decent looking storm. This is a decent looking rotation. This has been this has honestly been probably the most impressive rotation we've seen all day. It's south of Woodville here. Let me get a distance marker on it for you. So again, this is about 8 miles south of Woodville, 8 or 9 miles south of Woodville, where this mesocyclone is looking pretty good based on the radar data here. So it's certainly something that I'm interested in keeping a close eye on here. The tornado warning continues. Wait, that's a different one. That's we have right now we are dealing with I'm about ready to be working on my 6th distinct weather service office, and so that's just something that we do here. We have a lot of different weather service offices that cover the Carolinas, and sometimes you just gotta and sometimes it is a little challenging to keep them straight, but we're going to be okay. We're going to be just fine. Let me see who's got this one. This is AKQ, not Blacksburg. I've been confusing those. That's Wakefield. So I'm used to talking to Blacksburg for areas in the Piedmont and in the mountains there in North Carolina. But we do have this tornado warning that continues. Chowan County, you're out of the warning. Perkins County, you continue until 3:45. Tornado over Burgess, about 7 miles southeast of Hertford, moving northeast at 20 miles per hour. So again, town of Burgess right now, you are should be well within your tornado safety precautions here, as this is still kind of hopping and skipping, where you have maybe a little bit of the sounds here, some creeks, perhaps heading in the general direction of the Elizabeth City Airport. I'm going to circle that on the map here. You can see the runway outlines here. So there's the Elizabeth City Airport. This is going to pass probably just to the south of there. Here is Route 344. Going to do my best to highlight it as best as I can. This is North Carolina State Route 344, and there is the and there is the Elizabeth City Airport. This is going to stay south of Elizabeth City proper, it looks like. So that is some good news there. But again, this is pretty decent looking circulation off of the Wakefield radar. Set it into motion here, and again, it has a little bit of a. You can see a little bit of an S here in an S shape. In the reflectivity pattern, and that certainly is indicative of perhaps some trouble, certainly some rotation happening. Not seeing a lot of lightning from it, which is good. Typically, lightning is a precursor to tornado genesis. We're not seeing anything like that right now. But again, this is the kind of thing that can change on us on a dime, and even between radar scans. So certainly something to watch here if you're in the town of Burgess, approaching mostly unincorporated locations in eastern North Carolina, but Route 344 near the Elizabeth City Airport, certainly something you're going to want to keep a close eye on if you're in that area. And it looks like the Weather Service has let the tornado warning for Monroe County in North Carolina go. And so, Union County, excuse me. So the Union County tornado warning, they've let this go. It's 3:30, that one has expired. We still have a little bit of broad rotation indicated by radar over Marshville, but no spotter reports, no signs of any trouble here. So again, the tornado warning has been allowed to expire on time, which is good news. So the only game in town at this point as far as tornado warnings go, this is going to be once again in far northeastern North Carolina, south of Elizabeth City. We'll go back to the Wakefield radar. We're going to stay with this one for a little bit, as long as we don't have any new warnings pop up, which is certainly possible. Again, this is the kind of day where warnings can come fast, serious with a tropical cyclone. So again, I'm going to just kind of moving around, looking at a different source of radar, see if I can't find any additional issues here. And so again, we have this warning here going in for the next 12 minutes south of Woodville, North Carolina. Again, we'll get a marker on this. So about 8 miles south of Woodville, and then we'll also do a little have a few airfields here, but the area of probably the best landmark to use right now is the Elizabeth City Airport. And this is about 11 miles southwest of the Elizabeth City Airport. The rotation should stay south of the Elizabeth City Airport, but if you're anywhere south of the Elizabeth City Airport, near Route 344, south of the Elizabeth City Airport, I would strongly recommend at this point that you were in your tornado safe place, getting ready to go to your tornado safe place, as this rotation has been pretty persistent. It looks pretty good. Setting that into motion here, you can see that tight couplet of the green inbounds versus the red outbounds as it moves northeast at 25. So again, this is looking pretty good. Certainly something that we're going to want to keep a very close eye on as we go, and it just continues to really look decent on radar. It's probably the best looking circulation we have on radar. However, it is worth noting that we do have some broad circulation showing up. Several of these throughout eastern North Carolina. None of these are tornado warned. None of these pose any imminent danger. However, certainly something that we're going to want to keep an eye on for potentially quick spin-ups, quick warnings that could be needed here. So again, I think the thing to note here is that this is one of those storms that is not quite. We're not getting a lot of reports today. For whatever reason, we may get those reports later, but we have to act on the potential for a tornado. Again, near the town of Burgess, south of Woodville, approaching Route 344 south of the Elizabeth City Airport. We have a little bounded weak echo region here. And then, all right, so we've just gotten a new update from the Weather Service in Wakefield. So we are continuing to see a tornado warning here until 3:45. The storm is now near Nixonton, or 8 miles southwest of Weeksville, moving east at 25. So if you're looking for additional incorporated areas to take a look at, that is what you're looking at for the potential for a tornadic circulation. This is also this is getting very close to Nixonton now. Nixonton is not technically in the tornado warning polygon. That is, but again, we're kind of in a rural part of town, and a rural part of the state here, very near the coastline. So again, not really incorporated, but there's still people who live out there, and we want to make sure that y'all are getting the warnings properly. Let me so again, this circulation right now is going to get pretty close to Simmons Creek, Bob White Fort, and eventually Weeksville if this persists. And I would not be surprised to see the warning reissued downstream. Taking a look at a different source of radar has a little bit more detailed mapping as well. It helps me understand exactly where we're at. Some very strong winds now approaching, and this is going to get clipped on YouTube, and people are going to make fun of me for this, but I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to do my best here. Jacox, I'm 12, and this is so if anybody has a better pronunciation on that, I'm all ears. But this storm is about ready to cross basically right over this area. So again, something to keep a very close eye on. Here again, no indication that anything is on the ground. And one thing that we can do is we can look at the correlation coefficient, and this tells us if this is a good indicator of whether debris is being lofted. Note that everything here is pretty well purple or red, and that tells us that everything is uniform. It's all meteorological echoes. It's all rain. So we're not seeing any evidence of any debris being lofted. But I offer that with the caveat that we are looking about 6,000 feet up into the storm. So to loft debris about 6,000 feet up, you would need a pretty good, pretty strong tornado to do that as is. So certainly something certainly something that we're going to watch. But right now, no indication that anything is on the ground. However, these are shallow. So these are shallow, and this is a very good looking circulation. Again, this is one of the better looking circulations we've seen on radar all day. This is looking about 6,000 feet up in the storm. And that is a really, really good looking tornadic circulation. And this is about ready. And I suspect that this is probably going to be extended downstream. I would be shocked if it wasn't extended. Looks like this is going to stay just south of Nixonton, but it heads up in Simmons Creek and Bob White Fork and Weeksville. This is going to cross very close to you. And even though there's no formal warning out here yet, I suspect that with this kind of look, it's only a matter of time before that happens. So again, we'll wait to see what the Weather Service in Wakefield does with this. Again, we'll zoom out right now. I think one thing to note is that we have no additional tornado warnings on the board. While we wait to see what happens with that warning, we'll go back. We'll kind of just do a tour of the radars in the Carolinas, and you can see a pretty decent rain band stretching from just about south of Lake Murray, approaching the Columbia metro area, down through Springfield, into the town of Allendale, Hampton, Statesboro, Georgia. This is a pretty decent rain band. We've been watching this one for much of the day here in the Charleston metro area, which has stayed dry to this point. This rain band was probably going to start us in the Charleston metro on maybe a little bit more of the rainfall. A little bit more of that heavier rainfall, and that looks like it's going to arrive a little bit later this evening, probably about past 5 o'clock at this point, based on the radar data here. And you can't see it on this here, but we do have some flood advisories out for parts of. Let's see. Let me just get a location on that real quick. We do have a couple flood advisories out in the Columbia warning area for Aiken, Fairfield, Kershaw, Lexington, Newberry, Richland, and Saluda counties until 5:30. So there are flood advisories coming out on these. We've had quite a bit of rain, and again, it certainly seems that the center of Claudette, if we take a very close zoom on this, may be getting close to maybe in the Edgefield, Saluda area. So again, this might very well be the center of the storm, moving along I-20 right now, as we have a pretty much its only core rain band at this point moving into the Columbia metro area. And this has been, and it's worth noting that we've had a lot of time to destabilize further east. And so it would not shock me to see this potentially get a little bit stronger as it gets into the Charleston metro area. So this is something that we're going to want and watch closely. And again, we have showers and thunderstorms all the way back through Lancaster up into Charlotte, Wadesboro, Sanford, Raleigh. But the storm of concern right now is this tornado warning storm that is, and it still has a decent beware on it, still has a decent rotational signature. This is getting very close now. In eastern North Carolina, this is now getting very close to Simmons Creek, Bob White Fork, Lister's Corner, and Nixonton. This is going to, again, looks like this is going to go just south of Nixonton, but regardless, if you're in those areas, you're going to get some very heavy rain. And yes, and as I expected, we just got a new tornado warning. So we have a new tornado warning out now, and this is for Passatank and Perkins County. This tornado warning storm near Nixonton, near Weeksville, moving northeast at 20 miles an hour. So again, we'll get that polygon up here in a second once it refreshes. But as expected, we do have a new downstream tornado warning. This is south of Elizabeth City. This is going to so Elizabeth City, you're not in this, but however, some of these places that we've been calling out before, around Route 344, for example, you are now in this warning. So this is taking in. I'm going to take the radar data off over here on my map here. So this is just grazing Nixonton, but Simmons Creek, Bob White Fork, Weeksville, Glen Cove, Frog Island, Lister's Corner, and Stevenson Point. Stevenson Point, you're kind of on the south end of this, but this is certainly something that you're going to want to watch closely for the potential for some damaging winds, nonetheless. So here's there's your new tornado warning. It just came up on the screen here, and again, a pretty good looking circulation, probably one of the better looking circulations we've had all day. This is now headed, this is now approaching Route 344 in Passatank County. So again, I'm just taking a peek at a peek through to see what we've got going on here. Getting a look at the general area here, and one thing to note is that regardless of the tornado potential, I gotta tell you, I'm still watching some of these circulations that are this one south of Jamesville. South of Plymouth right now. I really am wondering here. It wouldn't surprise me to see some additional warnings go up at some point. The main concern, obviously, being in far northeastern North Carolina, heading into Passatank County, with the circulation just south of Nixonton, approaching Simmons Creek, Bob White Fork, and Weeksville over the next 20 minutes. It's moving northeast at 20. And again, when you're looking at Doppler radar, the beautiful thing about Doppler radar is that we can see into the rain. We can see where the winds are going. Here's the winds blowing towards the radar, winds blowing away from the radar. And if you have and your center of circulation is very possibly there, give or take a couple miles. So again, we try not to get too specific with the streets because it's pretty much impossible to do with radar. But yeah, looking at this right now, again, if there's one thing to say about the circulation is that maybe it's a little broader than it was. We'll go back in time a few minutes and you can see that, it was pretty tight here. And then and then it looks like it did get a little broadened out, but we'll need to, obviously, we need people who are in the warning polygon. If your phones went off, we need you in your safe place as soon as you can. All right, so I'm just kind of getting a look at some just additional data here. We got a lot of stuff to look at to keep an eye on things. But right now, the main issue is in Northeast North Carolina, where we have this tornado warning near Nixonton, near Weeksville, moving northeast at 20 miles per hour. This is now getting pretty close to some of those roads that we were calling out earlier, State Route 344. This is about, I'm going to put a little distance marker on, about 8 miles southwest. So you got about 10 minutes or so if you're there. So again, we want you all to be very close. This tornado warning does take in at least part of the Elizabeth City Airport. Say from the Elizabeth City Airport south on Highway 344, you're going to want to be in a tornado safe shelter, which is a interior room on the lowest floor of a site-built structure. If you're in a mobile home, you're going to need to get out of there. That's going to be a very important thing to do, as we do have the potential for, and even strong straight line winds can cause problems for mobile homes, and tornadoes certainly fit the bill as far as the problem sector here. So once again, just kind of centered on the circulation. The other thing to note is that it is completely wrapped in rain. There is rain all over the sky. And so the good news about Doppler radar is that it helps us see into the storm, so we can see where the tornado might be. But you're not going to visually be able to confirm this. It's too wrapped in rain. You're going to, if there's a tornado there, you're going to find out when it's entirely too late. So again, my advice to you is to, don't look for it. Just, handle the warning, get into that lowest floor on that interior room and closet. So you're looking at reflectivity. Let's go back to the velocity display. This is the one that we're most concerned about here. And again, here's your rotational signature right there, moving northeast at 20 miles per hour. So again, folks, we want you to be playing it safe with these. Tropical tornadoes spin up and down very quickly. They don't leave a lot of time. And sometimes the warnings can get a little bit on the busy side with these as we as we go. So what I'm going to do here, I'm pulling up some additional things, yet another screen, right? Getting some additional sources of data in here. We zoom out a little bit again. The only warning on the board is south of Elizabeth City. I'm still keeping an eye on a couple areas. This area south of Jamesville, which I think a Morehead City radar is going to have a better look at. So we're going to switch to that real quick, see if that's a real thing, see if that's something that we should be concerned about. And that has a decent look. It would not shock me to see Morehead City warn on this one south of Jamesville at some point. You get a decently tight rotation. I've correlated with two radars here. I certainly think that is going to be something that we're going to want to watch very closely here. And I believe they've just put a special weather statement out on it. So they certainly are keeping an eye on it. They've not warned on it yet, but yeah, so there's your special weather statement right there. You have this little lead rotation here, and this is between Highway 171 and Highway 32 south of 64. So south of Jamesville, south of Plymouth. So again, there's no formal warning on this, but I would encourage you to keep an eye on this just in case. So let me so I'm just we're working all the things right now here at the Carolina Weather Group. About 3:50 p.m. I'm Jared Smith with Carolina Weather Group on the Carolina Weather Net with live streaming continuous tornado warning coverage as Tropical Depression Claudette moves eastward across the Carolinas and is popping up a couple of tornado warnings here and there. East side of circulations of tropical cyclones are notorious for this. You get decent wind shear in the eastern semicircle and the northeastern quadrant of these, and today is proving to be no exception to that rule. We've not had any formal tornado reports yet. That's the good news. I think that's one bit of good news, is that we've not heard much of any tornado reports or too much even damage reports at this point. But again, tropical systems, they will tend to spin up and spin down very quickly, and so that's something that we want to keep an eye on, and that's why we're here. When that tornado warning comes out, you certainly want to take cover as quickly as possible, as these do pop up very quickly and then they go away very quickly. So that makes them very difficult to warn on. And so we're going to continue to monitor this very closely here. And again, if you're watching on the Carolina Weather Net, you had a ticker at the bottom. We're going to we have the we'll have the warning scrolling for you as needed. We also have some flood advisories out southwest of the Columbia metro area as well. Not showing up here, but we do have a rain band. I'm kind of doing a reset here, so let's do that. Let me switch off. Let me switch the radar view. And we have a pretty heavy rain band right about to get into Columbia proper here, and you can see there's your broad circulation. You have some of those thunderstorms in the northeast quadrant again. So we've had a couple. Areas of rotation that have caught the notice of the Weather Service that approach very close to Monroe, North Carolina earlier this afternoon. We have some additional rainfall headed up in that direction. Right now, no tornado warnings in effect in South Carolina. And again, the only tornado warning that's in effect is in northeast North Carolina, and we're going to get back to that one in just a second. I'm just taking a peek at some additional radar data here. We have screens. If only you could see what we've got going on over here. It's as the cool kids say, it's lit. So we will so we'll do that, and we'll zoom out of that. So again, this rain band going through Congaree and Gaston right now, passing through Swansea. This looks like this is just getting very close to I-26 between Columbia and really Orangeburg at least. It's going to be a pretty dicey drive. You're going to have some very high rain rates. Don't see any signs of any severe weather. Switching to velocity right now, you can see that there are some areas where we have potentially some higher wind gusts mixing down, but we don't have any formal tornado warnings. We don't have any major concerns with this rain band other than the rain, and maybe some strong straight line winds as it continues to push eastward. This is going to be your main rainmaker in the Charleston metro area. So that's my typical stomping grounds is Charleston, and we've been watching this very closely all day. We've been destabilizing decently in Charleston. We've had the sun out for a fair bit of the day, and so that's certainly something that we're going to need to keep a close eye on. Oh, what was that noise? All right. Anyway. So we're in continuing coverage here, getting close to the 4 o'clock hour, and let me make a couple tweaks here real quick to what I'm looking at here, and we will go back to radar scope, and we will go back to our circulation that is south of Elizabeth City on the AKQ radar. And again, you have this little, you have a little bit of a bounded weak echo region here. You can see this little donut hole, and this is a decent telltale sign on reflectivity that we have at least a circulation here. Go to the velocity display to confirm that, and this has broadened out a little bit. This is not exactly as impressive as it was a little while ago, but still, right now, this is going over. This is very near Simmons Creek, Bob White Park, and Weeksville. So we're certainly going to need to keep a close eye on this. It is not looking as impressive as it was. That's the good news. But again, this can spin something down at any time. Again, it can go. These things can spin up tornadoes between radar scans, and the radar scans have gotten faster, but it's not foolproof. So again, looking at this. This is south of Elizabeth City. This is going to cross just south of the Elizabeth City Airport. You're starting to get into the really heavy rain now, or along State Route 344. So again, we've been calling that out a little bit over the last little while, and it continues to demonstrate. It continues to demonstrate some very heavy rain in this neck of the woods. So again, watching Twitter, watching all the things right now, and again, we are interested in your reports. If you have any severe weather reports, please feel free to put them into the chat, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook. We want to continue. We want to keep you informed here, and the best way that we can keep you informed is to know what's going on in your neck of the woods, so we can understand exactly what the situation is on the ground. So again, so there's your only tornado warning. This is the only tornado warning in the Carolinas right now, and hopefully, and hopefully we can keep it this way. We do have a small circulation south of Jamesville that has been pretty broad and persistent, but has not been warned on to this point. Right now, the main area of concern is pretty much dead south of Elizabeth City at this point. It is not going to affect Elizabeth City proper. About 9 miles south of Elizabeth City, and that's about as far as it's going to get. So again, if you're in Elizabeth City, if you were south of Elizabeth City, you're not. If you're south of Elizabeth City, you need to keep an eye on this. If you're in Elizabeth City proper, you're okay. If you're anywhere near the airport, point south. Keep an eye on this. As while this is broadening out a little bit, certainly a tornado remains possible with the tornado warning. That remains in effect until 4:15. So do have a little bit of a sign of a circulation here showing up on radar. Again, we're getting a look at this about 6,000 feet into the storm. So this is, so as you can surmise, 6,000 feet is very far from the ground. So we don't know what's going on directly on the ground. We're just making an extrapolation based off what we know about the radar data and about the environment that we have, which is a decently well-sheared environment, out ahead of a tropical cyclone, which, in the northeast quadrant in particular is where the best wind shear is, and you can get these small style spin-up tornadoes. And the good news is that we've not had many reports. We've not had many issues to this point. Not hearing of too many damage reports as it goes right now. We will continue to circle the wagons on that if needed. So just got an update to that tornado warning. Weather Service in Wakefield is now basically saying it's right over Weeksville, moving northeast at 20. If you are in Perkins County, you are out of any tornado warnings. You're all clear. This tornado warning continues for Passatank until 4:15. So again, at 3:15, Weather Service had a fix right over Weeksville. And I'm keeping an eye on this as well. Over here, I've got lots and lots and lots of windows, as you can imagine, at the moment. And I have a lot of pop-up dialogues too that are starting to annoy me. So we'll just get that in front here. So yeah. So if there's anything happening, it's going to be happening in the town of Weeksville right about now. And I am a little surprised, honestly, that we have not seen more warnings as well. I'm going to switch to Raleigh real quick. Obviously, that's going to be a little too far. That's still a little too far. Let's go to Morehead City. We do have multiple area rotation showing up on radar. So again, one south of Jamesville, which is some pretty decent lightning with it. We have little, just tiny, small areas of rotation, maybe near Pinetown even. Again, these are not warned. They're not warned yet. If they intensify or remain persistent, they very well could be, and so that's why we're here, to keep an eye on these. So again, here's your area rotation. This is certainly looking a lot less impressive than it was, but if you're in the town of Weeksville, right now is the time to be in your safe place. This is going to eventually Taylor's Beach, Shiloh, Old Trap, Goose Creek, North Carolina. So not Goose Creek, South Carolina, where I hail from. Goose Creek, North Carolina. And the town of Texas in North Carolina. Certainly something to watch as this storm is going to head in your general direction here over the next 30 minutes. We continue to monitor this, and again, we're watching all sorts of sources of information for any potential, information on whether there is any wind damage, any sightings of any tornadoes. So far, so good on that front. We haven't heard anything, but we do need folks to continue to keep an eye on things as it goes. And outside of the tornado threat, the other threat that's probably going to affect a lot more people is going to be the rain threat, and certainly flood advisories are ongoing in the Columbia metro area right now. No real reports of any confirmed flooding yet, but as we have a pretty decent rain band, what I would loosely call kind of the inner core rain band, if you could call it an inner core, to this storm, is swinging right through the Columbia metro area right now. It's crossing I-26 at Columbia, so that's going to be a very rough ride here for the next little bit. Set this into motion here, and you can see how this is drifting south, eventually approaching the Charleston metro area as well. And again, for those of you who might be watching in Charleston, obviously we've been very quiet here, but to this point, we've had a few showers throughout the day, but we've been destabilizing a little bit. We should see this activity tick up a little bit more as it approaches closer to the Charleston metro area. And so on RAX, let's go back to RAX. Let's go to Elizabeth City. And again, right now, I would say that this corridor here is kind of the bullseye at this point right now. I would say, if there's going to be a tornado circulating, if there's going to be an area that I'm concerned about, it's certainly going to be kind of in this corridor here, roughly around 64 and Highway 17. They can't really put a single road to it, but we do have some areas that are certainly showing signs of rotation, and this is this is going to be a situation where this is just going to be a situation where we could see things spin up and spin down very quickly. The only formal tornado warning on the board is in this is in Pasquotank County in North Carolina. Pretty strong inbounds here, not really seeing the outbounds as much when we look at it from the radar here at this point, but that does not mean that there isn't anything there. And in fact, I'm looking at the storm relative product on there. We have about 50 knots inbound on this. So again, there's certainly shear. There's certainly wind shear here that could potentially produce a tornado at any time around the Weeksville area. This is passing right over Weeksville right now. This is going to split the difference between Glen Cove and Taylor's Beach, it looks like. It's going to stay north of Glen Cove. Again, we're getting into the sounds here. So the next towns that I would be a little concerned about are Shiloh, Riddle, Bartlett. They're not, and they don't necessarily show up on this map. I'm looking at a different source of information than this map here at the moment to get some of these. These are really, really tiny incorporations, really tiny towns. And so not every mapping source, unfortunately, is going to show that to you. However, it is important that people understand the situation that's happening. And while there may not be formal tornado warnings in some of these towns that I've called out, still certainly seems that if we continue to see this kind of signature show up, we will have to, I'm sure the Weather Service is going to have to consider potentially issuing another warning downstream. And again, looking from the Wakefield radar right now, we have some pretty decent circulation. Let's just take a quick look at these. You got one that's about ready to cross Highway 32. And this is a kind of a broad circulation, but it is there. But there is a circulation there. There's a small circulation near the town of Roper, right along Highway 64. Some very broad rotation south of 64, south of Jamesville. This corridor, generally from about Highway 64 up into the Elizabeth City area, is certainly the place that I would be most interested for people to, keep a very close eye on here. We'll be joined here in a second, I believe. We have a new flash flood warning, actually. So before we get to that, we have a new flash flood warning now in the Columbia metro area, it looks like. Waiting for that polygon to show up on the graphic system, but on a graphic system would be nice. Any one of you nice graphic systems, if you would please show me your flash flood warning. But it looks like this is okay. So I've got the flash flood warning over on chat. So this is going to include parts of Calhoun, Fairfield, Kershaw, Lexington, Newberry, and Richland counties. This is going to go until 7:15. So the National Weather Service has issued a flash flood warning right in parts of the Columbia metro area. This is going to include, I believe this is going to include the town of Irmo. This is going to include Chapin, town of Newberry. It's going to be on the northwest side of Columbia. Looks like it does take in downtown Columbia. This is going to be just to the west of Fort Jackson. This is going to head up. This is going to be bounded roughly by Winnsboro to the north along I-77 and along I-26 past Lake Murray, just to the southeast of Newberry. So again, there's your flash flood warning polygon. We've got it up on the screen here. I'm going to make the radar a little bit dimmer real quick. And it looks like we've got Frank Strait joining us. He's on the road. Hey, Frank, let's talk where you're at and what you're looking to do.
Well, at the moment, I'm at the library in Polk County, North Carolina, in Columbus, where nothing but a gentle rain's falling here. But, of course, we have a lot more excitement happening over in eastern North Carolina. I've been looking at the Storm Prediction Center's mesoanalysis page here and in sort of investigating what we're looking at over the next few hours here. And it looks as though we have a pretty favorable environment for rotating updrafts and potential tornadoes there over eastern North Carolina right now, and it looks as though we are going to see some more issues with potential tornadoes over in that part of the state here over the next couple of hours. So if you're over in that area, you're going to want to stay in touch with the weather and pay close attention to what's going on with these storms moving in. We do have several rotating updrafts out there right now, just looking at radar, and let's just call up the radar here right now. I hope you're able to see this. This is Morehead City radar showing the line of thunderstorms south and southwest of where the tornado warnings are out in far northeastern North Carolina right now. But I wanted to bring up the velocity here to show you we have at least two rotating areas right now. One in Washington County here south of Plymouth, another one near Pinetown in Beaufort County. And there may be another rotation off to the southwest, too. Kind of hard to say, but this area will have to keep an eye on it. Storm motion looks like it's more or less southwest to northeast here. So we'll be watching that pretty carefully here over the next hour or so as these storms continue to push east in an unstable and sheared environment, which can produce some tornadoes. Jared?
Frank, it's James Brereton in Charlotte. I will take it from here, and Jared will be back with us momentarily. After holding down the fort for you, everyone here in the last little bit, Frank Strait and I will continue to guide you through the severe weather that we're seeing across the Carolinas right now. Multiple tornado warnings over the course of the last few hours or so, and a new flash flood warning that has just come in as well, too, that is in effect for the Columbia metro area. And as you heard Jared talking about just a few moments ago, we're going to keep a close eye on a line of heavy rain that is coming into that Columbia area. No warnings to tell you about right now, but we do have a special weather statement out associated with this line of strong thunderstorms that are moving through that Columbia area right now to the northeast. We'll watch for the pooling and ponding of water that has prompted them to issue this flash flood warning. Frank, I know you're in your car. I know you just told our audience this a moment ago, but can you tell me again, where are you located right now?
I'm in Columbus, North Carolina. I'm borrowing the Wi-Fi at the library, even though it's closed. So let's take another look here at the radar. We'll go to the Columbia radar here so y'all can see the flash flood warning that's been issued there in a graphical method here covering a lot of Lexington and Richland counties, going into Kershaw and Fairfield counties as well. This from a line of thunderstorms that's been moving in gradually through the southwest across Lexington County here over the last couple of hours. There was a cell that up near the Irmo area now that prompted that tornado warning earlier. It's since weakened considerably. Some torrential downpours occurring with that line of thunderstorms as it pushes through, and that's partly the reason why we have that flash flood warning out now. Also because we've seen some substantial rainfall, 1 to 2, maybe locally 3 inches of rainfall in this area over the last 12 hours or so since we started feeling the effects of Claudette, actually going closer to 24 hours now, I guess. And in addition to that, in Columbia and the urban areas around Columbia, there are some pretty flood-prone areas. Obviously, Whaley Street in Columbia. Folks in the south side of Columbia are well familiar with that area and its tendency to flood, especially under the train bridge there. It's one area that sticks out in my mind. In addition to that, there are some fairly decent winds with this line of storms pushing through. Sure, there's some spooky looking clouds there. There's no severe thunderstorm warning or anything like that out right now for this line of storms, but that Boeing structure does catch my attention. And I see that via the MPing app, there have been a couple of reports of some decent winds. One actually in Columbia, looks like in the downtown area, another back in Lexington County. So while there may not be any severe level winds, I'm sure it's pretty gusty with the leading edge of that line of storms pushing through.
Taking a live look right now, Columbia, South Carolina, courtesy of our friends at WeatherStem. And we'll keep a close eye on this here in the next few minutes. We also have a camera from USGS that's a little bit more downtown, Frank, that I'm hoping we can call up, take a look at, but it's not currently loading. I'm also battling a little bit of an echo right now. I have found the source of that echo. Thank you, Frank, for noticing it as well, too. Well, as Frank mentioned, we do have this band of heavy rain that is moving through the Columbia area right now. We are also still watching one more active tornado warning right now. This isn't far northeastern North Carolina. This is under this is just outside the kind of the Elizabeth City area, just to the south there. This is set to expire in the next 3 minutes or so. We'll wait to see what the National Weather Service decides to do with this particular storm that they've been tracking and warning for quite a little while now. But if we switch on over to velocity, you can see where the area of potential rotation is. And again, it's south of the Elizabeth City area. It does look like it's onshore at this point, not over the water, not over the inlet there. And this is tracking to the north and to the east. We do have a special marine warning already out in front of it as we continue to watch this particular cell continue to slide off, like a lot of what we're seeing here to the north and the east, at least on this side of Claudette, as we're watching the tropical depression continue to slowly move over portions of the southeast, as it's been doing. As we put this radar into motion here, you can see where a lot of this lightning is coming together here, showing us that we still have good with this particular thunderstorm, as well. We'll continue to watch exactly what the Weather Service does. I expect Frank will have an update from them in the next few moments or so to help us determine. Matter of fact, it looks like the National Weather Service has just gone ahead to expire that tornado warning, which means we don't have any active tornado warnings now in the Carolinas at 4:13 p.m. on this Sunday, June the 20th, 2021, Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all of our fathers out there who may be watching and joining us. But we're going to stay on the air here, Frank and I, and continue to track this severe weather, especially with a flash flood warning in a major metropolitan area like Columbia. And as Frank was talking, there are a lot of areas there, as so many of you may know in your own backyards, that are prone to flooding in that Columbia area. So we'll change that banner just to indicate the fact that we're tracking severe weather in the Carolinas, because we'll continue monitoring for that threat of more potential severe weather as we go on throughout the afternoon. No tornado warnings right now, but if you take a look at the Storm Prediction Center's outlook for the rest of today, you can see we are now monitoring for the slight chance of severe weather. That's the tier 2 out of 5 for most of coastal North Carolina and South Carolina. Marginal as far inland as maybe Charlotte or Columbia, even over towards Augusta and Raleigh as well, too, for a tier 1 out of 5. This is all, of course, associated with Claudette, which is continuing to move across the region. As we take a look at that National Hurricane Center outlook, right? We have Tropical Depression Claudette, the only game in town across the entire Atlantic Basin right now, but we're watching for this to to continue sliding off to the north and to the east. And as Jared's been telling you, watching for the possibility that this system will strengthen back into a tropical storm status as the actual area of circulation, that low pressure, makes its way out towards the Carolina coast overnight through the early morning hours on Monday. That blue you see on your screen indicating where a tropical storm warning is in effect. And Frank, I know you've been talking a lot about watching for the threat of flooding along the coast, in addition to watching all these tornado warnings.
That's right. Assuming that we do see Claudette start to intensify as it approaches the coast once again and start to redevelop, we'll see winds increasing in an onshore direction across the Carolina coastline, and that's going to present some problems because we're headed toward high tide in that area. If I recall correctly, it's a little after 5 when Charleston's high tide occurs this evening. And if we can get that and some strong onshore winds and also some heavy rain all at the same time, that could produce some flooding issues around Charleston. And again, onshore winds, especially if they're increasing to tropical storm force in eastern North Carolina along the coast there, we'll likely see at least some minor coastal flooding problems there too, which will be compounded by heavy rain, of course, if we're seeing a tropical storm winding up in that area as it tries to exit out to sea. So that's another thing we're going to have to keep an eye on as we go through this evening, is the risk for coastal flooding, in addition to the tornado risk, in addition to the heavy rain and flooding risk, and the winds picking up as well, James.
Yeah, let's take a live look right now in that Columbia area from a South Carolina DOT camera. This is Interstate 20 westbound at Broad River Bridge. You can see the trees blowing in the wind there, visibility real low, cars slowing down. Again, this is where the flash flood warning is in effect now for the Columbia metro area. We don't have any tornado warnings to tell you about here at 4:16 p.m., but we're continuing our live coverage here on the Carolina Weather Net and across the sister properties of the Carolina Weather Group as we're tracking Tropical Depression Claudette moving across the area. I'm James Brierton in Charlotte. We have Frank Strait on the go. I think he said he's in Columbus, North Carolina today, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
Jared Smith, who's been holding down a lot of our coverage throughout the afternoon from his little headquarters there for CHSWX Charleston Weather, of course, in Charleston, South Carolina. We'll bring Jared back in when he's gives us the thumbs up, and we'll continue to track the storm system that has most of the Southeast on alert today. Our first flirting with the 2021 hurricane season, Frank. We're already up to that C name in June. Somebody just asked me, is it unusual for June to be tracking the tropics? And June 1st, it's hurricane season. So, yeah, sure. I guess the bell curve will peak in September, but it's not out of the question, especially after last year.
That's indeed the case. Last year was, of course, crazy busy, the most active season on record. And we expect this hurricane season to be an active one as well. Not quite as active as last year, as we don't exactly have the perfect storm that we had last year, but still the factors are in place for us to have a pretty active hurricane season. So definitely be ready for more storms to develop here. Not likely in the short term, as we don't have anything else brewing out there now, but been looking at some long-range model data, and we may have to keep our eyes on a couple of systems in 7 to 10 days, something we certainly will have to keep an eye on.
And that reminds me, let's go ahead and kind of do a reset here for everyone who's joining us at this hour and show everybody what it is that we're watching across the Carolinas as we are continuing to watch what Claudette does over the next few hours or so. We can go ahead and put on your screen a kind of a look right now at all of the watches and warnings across the continental U.S., powered by, of course, the National Weather Service and all their hardworking meteorologists. This does still show a tornado warning in northeastern North Carolina that has been allowed to expire. But first and foremost, all of that red you see along the coast, primarily in the North Carolina coast, but as far south in the South Carolina coast is coming past Myrtle Beach, but a little shy of the Charleston area. These are tropical storm warnings because Claudette is expected to strengthen back into a tropical storm as we look ahead through the overnight hours. And then all of that area in green, again, kind of the I-95 corridor of North Carolina, further inland all the way to Columbia Columbia in South Carolina. These are flash flood watches that remain in effect throughout much of the night. And then, of course, as we've been telling you, we do actually have a flash flood warning right now for the Columbia metro area where flash flooding is likely or is occurring. And we'll remind folks that means that water is beginning to pool up in areas where it could be endangering life or property. And so we'll look for additional reports out of the Columbia metro area and across the region to find out what all that exactly means for them. But it sounds like right now in the Columbia area, heavy rain continuing with bands of rain associated with Claudette, rain rates between 1 and 2 inches an hour. These are continuing to move through the region. And as I have experienced right here in southern Mecklenburg, sometimes you go from sunny to tropical downpour real quickly, and then it moves on out again. So luckily there's some momentum with these cells, but they can definitely dump a lot of rain very quickly.
They sure can. That's what we have to deal with when we have a tropical air mass in place and so much moisture around. Of course, it's warm and steamy down here where we are, but that very humid atmosphere extends upward as well, and it's there's just a lot of moisture available for these thunderstorms to take advantage of and put a lot of rain down. Since we're in the process of doing a little reset, let's look in general at what's happening with the weather across the Carolinas right now. And I'll start with a satellite picture here, looking at eastern North Carolina, showing these thunderstorms drifting through the eastern part of North Carolina and over toward the coastal areas here. Let me readjust this a little bit here so we can get it to the right spot. And there's those powerful thunderstorms producing a lot of rain, some wind, and a few rotating updrafts to keep an eye on as well as they move over the sounds and toward the Outer Banks, eastern North Carolina. Farther to the south and west here, the thing that catches my attention here, once the satellite picture reloads here, is that the sun's out in this area still. So in addition to it being very humid and some wind shear being present, we're continuing to build the instability as the sun continues to heat the low levels in this area. So that's going to be an area to watch for additional thunderstorm development and perhaps some further intensification as Claudette's core moves into this area this afternoon. Now, I've been talking about the potential for stronger storms, and looking at the SPC's mesoanalysis page, I'll get a little geeky here and show the CAPE plot, which is a measure of instability for you weather geeks out there. This is the mixed layer CAPE, and when this is above 1,000, that's joules per kilogram, an energy measurement here. When it's above 1,000, you start really watching for severe weather, and that's what we have over a lot of eastern North Carolina. In fact, it's over 2,000 in the area that's being affected by those storms. So that is a pretty good bit of thunderstorm fuel available. Let's take a look at the risk area. This is the SPC's day one outlook. And again, you can see the yellow indicating quote unquote slight risk, level 2 out of 5. Across the coastal plain of South Carolina into the Midlands and into southeastern North Carolina, and marginal level 1 risk sort of surrounding that. So those are the areas we continue to watch, although the threat, I think, is lessening across the I-77 corridor now, with that first line of thunderstorms now starting to push off to the east of there. We'll go back and take a look at the radar now. First, the Columbia area, where we have the flash flood warning still in effect there. Actually, I need to switch windows here on my screen sharing, so give me 1 second to do that to show you the radar. And there we go. There's the Columbia, South Carolina radar showing that flash flood warning. It's in effect until 7:15. A lot of heavy rain has occurred, and this line of storms producing additional very heavy rainfall across mostly Richland County at this point, but still some lingering rain in far northern Lexington County, all that along I-26 there, which tends to have a good bit of traffic along the northeast side of the Columbia metro area. And additional rain pushing northeastward toward Blythewood, into Fort Jackson, and over toward the Elgin area, going north along I-77 and east along Interstate 20. And additionally, there can be some locally gusty winds with this storm too. It doesn't look as though it's reaching severe levels, at least at this point, but there have been a couple of reports.
Might be able to show you some of those winds, Frank. I think this is a live look at Interstate 20 eastbound fire trucks and maybe a couple downed trees there. I'm not exactly sure. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to show these live pictures confirming exactly what you're talking about in the Columbia area.
Yeah, exactly. It looks as though we had maybe some debris onto the road, or maybe just someone did something a little silly that they shouldn't have and caused a fender bender there. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. It actually looks like that there might actually be a car that's gone off into the grass there, perhaps. I can't really see. The picture's really
a little
small.
hard to tell. Yeah, it looks like a little something on the off to the right there.
Right, that may be what's actually going on there. So anyway, let's also take a look at those thunderstorms over eastern North Carolina. I guess we don't have any actual warnings going on right now, but those are pretty robust thunderstorms there in Beaufort and Washington counties that are heading to the northeast right now and training a little bit. So repeated downpours might cause some minor flooding issues there. And also we'll take a look at the velocity image, and it looks as though we have a general those two separate rotations are sort of producing some general sheared area here over eastern Beaufort County and into Washington County as this line of storms pushes eastward. So those of you across eastern Washington County, eastern Beaufort County, and over into Hyde and Terrell counties are going to have to watch this line moving in. As I said earlier, it looks as though conditions are fairly favorable for things to spin up in this area. So these thunderstorms will have to be watched pretty carefully as they head on off to the east, James.
Yeah, here's a live look at Corolla just to the northeast of where you were looking out on the radar there, courtesy of our friends at WeatherStem. So we'll keep a close eye on that camera along with our network of cameras across the area to see exactly what could transpire next here. We also had a question came in from Kathleen, who's watching on Facebook. What are the greatest chances for tornado? And we're able to answer that question thanks to our friends at the Storm Prediction Center. So you can see the chances of encountering a tornado today, 5% chance all along the coast, 2% as you make your way a little bit further inland. Of course, those correspond with the slight and marginal risk locations that the Storm Prediction Center has issued for today. And I'll also tell you that 5% chance may sound really low, but if I had a 5% chance of winning the lotto today, Frank, you know I'd go out and buy a ticket.
Absolutely. If I could have a 5% chance of winning the lottery, I would buy 20 tickets.
Yes. Certainly. No tornado warnings to tell you right now across both North Carolina and South Carolina. We are continuing to watch the effects of a flash flood warning that is in effect right now for the Columbia metro area. But we'll welcome back in Jared Smith, who's been holding down the fort. And Jared, this tropical depression, not disappointing, putting on quite a show here throughout this Father's Day Sunday.
It's been a little busy, to say the least, and again, I think the good news is right now is that we're not really seeing too many reports of any damage. James, let me know if that is incorrect, but
that's my understanding as well.
So that is some good news. I mean, we've had several tornado warnings that obviously, that if you've been with us since we went live earlier today, you undoubtedly have known about that. But I think a couple things to talk about. A couple things to note first is that there is that we do not have any active tornado watches right now. I think
you're not both reading that same comment at the same time.
Well, you know, it's funny. It's not even that. It's like, you know, I was going into this today, thinking, we certainly have a risk for a tornado watch. I mean, you'd think that a tornado watch would be something that would happen, but that has not been the case so far. And so no tornado watches in effect across the Tri-County area, or Tri-County area. That's my area across the Carolinas.
Dual state. Yeah.
Yeah, the dual state. Yeah,
we were watching for a 40% chance of a tornado watch being issued. This is all math probability, right? But tornado watch, you guys all know that's kind of one of the precursors to look for when we're expecting widespread tornadoes. And as Jared will tell you, we've had plenty of tornado warnings over the last 2 hours or so. But in terms of the perspective of the National Weather Service, it sounds like they've been a little too scattered to quantify for a concentrated watch area.
Now that certainly
is
that certainly can be a reason that you would do that, and again, as we've seen, it has been very scattered. We've been kind of going back and forth all day. A couple of other things that I wanted to talk about here a little bit. Obviously, we have the very heavy flooding rains moving into Columbia right now. We have some very heavy downpours crossing the KCLX radar site in early branch, South Carolina. This is heading towards I-95. Let me put my radar back up real quick with me keyed in, so you can actually see.
As you do that, take a look at this weather stem camera as well too in the Columbia area.
That's
very dark and
a good
gloomy
one.
all of a sudden.
Yeah. That's a yep. So there's that. Yeah, that's Williams Bryce, and you could say that it is not a sandstorm. If we're going to take things, for those of you who are the faithful of South Carolina, hopefully you did not get offended at my joke, but yeah, no, that's definitely looking pretty busy up there as we go into this. I'm gonna
carry on with your radar on the left there, Jared. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're good. What I'm going to do, James, is I am going to take my key out of it because you can't see me, and we'll just. Yeah, we can't see me anyway, so we're just going to go like this. So anyway, let's jump back into this a little, starting in the low country of South Carolina. As you can see here, we've been pretty quiet in the Charleston metro today. I mean, we've had a fair bit of sunshine. Not great, because that helps, with the instability. And certainly we're keeping a very close eye on this rain band that has looked a little more ragged, honestly, as it gets into the Charleston metro area. So a couple things have happened today. One, and this may portend some good news for Charleston. We've had some pretty decent convection along the Gulf Coast, and what that tends to do is that tends to cut off the inflow of quality moisture into our neck of the woods. And with the surface winds going southwest now, so that very well could be choking off some of the moisture here in the Charleston metro area, or at least putting the kibosh on some of the more serious stuff. However, we still have plenty of heavy rain that is going to eventually pour in, starting to see the outer fringes of that reach into Dorchester County, crossing I-95 now. Walterboro is about to get a pretty decent little rainy squall here. And again, one other thing to note is that we've still been pretty gusty today. We've seen gusts of 36 miles an hour at the airport. We have a decently strong low-level jet set up across the coastal South Carolina. And as the sun has been coming out, that has been causing a little bit of mixing up in the atmosphere, and that has pulled some of those wind gusts down. And so let me. Wrong one. There we go. So as we continue to watch this, we see this rain band obviously causing flash flooding issues potentially in the Columbia metro area proper. These are all pushing eastward here. Again, we could see 40 to 50 mile an hour wind gusts from these storms as they move through. Certainly something that we'll want to keep a very close eye on. I'm particularly interested in this little bow echo that's coming out of Yemassee right now. Let's put a little bit of. We'll put the velocity display up. This is not necessarily looking at any rotation, but this is straight line wind, and this wind is you can see that little shear line there, and it's going right into Yemassee. And keep in mind, we are literally, there is the radar, right? We're right next to the radar site here, so we are seeing very close to the ground. And as I pull this up, we get pretty decent winds, 30, 38 miles an hour, some pretty decent wind gusts mixing down about 40 miles an hour. Moving right into the town of Yemassee. It's right along I-95, in just the far reaches of Hampton County.
We have a live picture from there now too.
Yeah, so let's pull that here and go to the right one. Yeah, so there's I-95 at mile marker 37. Yep, it's raining. It's raining a lot. Fair bit of traffic, actually, good bit of traffic. For this time of day, so that's certainly I'm
curious to see what happens in the next few minutes. If I've got this on the right, right at that bend there, right where 68 comes in, and then 95 bends a little bit. It's kind of where we're hanging out. I think I'm in the right region, trying to follow along on your radar.
Yeah, I would also keep a little eye on this. Just saw this come in the last scan.
Right, we're watching that bow.
Well, it's the bow, but then there's a little notch. There's a little surge ahead of it.
Oh, true.
And so let me tilt up a little bit. So, and of course, tilting up is not really going to do me a whole heck of a lot of good this close to the radar site. Don't see anything yet, but these are the kinds of things where, when we typically one of the themes of today's quick spin up tornadoes. And certainly along the edge of a line like this, when we see these little notches show up in the reflectivity, let's tilt up with the reflectivity too and see if that correlates at all. And I think they're running sales cuts, so I'm not going to be able to quite see that here for another minute or so. But anytime I see a little notch at the leading edge of a bow like that, I get a little concerned, because that is typically where you can see maybe a quick spin up.
Well, we've already lost the visibility on this DOT camera in the last 45 seconds.
Yeah, so this is it's definitely getting through there now, and I would it stands to reason that this radar image that you're seeing right now is probably delayed just a little bit. And so so there it is. There's your update. I bet you that we are seeing. If I had to gander, we're probably looking right around here, and there's your heavy rainfall
about
moving
where
in.
we're looking.
Yeah. So there's your heavy rainfall moving in right now. It's a very driving, windy rain. The DOT camera, I think,
real good.
Yeah, I think the DOT camera does a much better job than I possibly could of even describing this on the radar. But there's your radar view. Seeing is believing. A picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And we have lots of those today. We have Williams-Brice looking quite ominous. We now have a big downpour on I-95 near Yemassee, and again, with that camera bouncing, that definitely verifies that there's some strong straight line winds here. Let me go back to my radar view here and punch up the velocity. And there's your velocity display here. And again, we're not looking at anything necessarily rotating, but we said 40, 45 mile an hour winds. And keep in mind that this is about 400 feet up. Usually when we're looking at a radar, we're looking closer on the order of a couple thousand. But the radar site is literally just in the southwest part of the frame. I don't even think you can see it. I think it's so far out you can't even really see it in the viewport here. But this little bit of strong straight line winds looks like it's about to move into Yemassee. It's going to move about looks like 17A, and eventually looks like that's a railroad line, and then eventually, we'll see how long that lasts.
We're looking at Highway 68. I moved the camera just a few clicks north near the Love's truck stop, Highway 68. So again, we're going to watch that visibility come down again as we're kind of trying to keep with that leading edge.
Yep.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we lose the visibility and this starts dancing here too. This should actually be right where the winds, I think, are going to cross.
Yeah. So in fact, I think you can see where the edge of that heavy rain is. If you look just beyond there, you can see some very you can see that the visibility drops pretty noticeably very quickly. It's like when you're on the road and you see that giant wall of water there. I mean, that's basically exactly what's happening. Yeah, that's exactly it. I think one thing to note, James, that that I'm keeping an eye on closely. One nice thing is that thank you to the satellite ferry who got us the 1 minute mesoscale floater. The Go 16 satellite lets us see updates as frequently as 1 minute over certain parts, and today we have it. And so I'm keeping an eye on the satellite trends with this, and I'm not really seeing much in the way of strengthening per se. I'm not really seeing any lightning. There's not really any lightning with this. In fact, the Weather Service just put out a special weather statement calling out hazardous showers, 45 to 55 mile an hour wind gusts,
especially if you're trying to drive.
Yeah, I mean this is not this is not great. I mean this is just not great for driving.
Is it hailing?
I would be very shocked.
This camera?
No, I don't think so.
Those are just big raindrops?
I think those are just big rain. Those are big raindrops. Because keep in mind, James, is like we have a very, very, very deep tropical air mass in place. Precipitable water values
Are you sure? I'm watching the ground in the middle.
Let me pop this
I thought
up.
I saw some things bouncing. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, if it was Folly Beach at night, it would be snow. But
that's right.
And for those of you who were there for that, that was always an interesting thing. But no,
just big raindrops.
Yeah, these are just big raindrops because again, if we were seeing hail that close to the ground, we can figure that out real fast here because we're going to get a very good look at this with the correlation coefficient product. And as you can see, it's most pretty well correlated, even this close, where you have some clutter getting in the way. Yeah, we're good. Those are just big old drops. And one last way. Yeah, big old fat rain, as they call it. And let me, and one last thing here. Yeah. The hydrometeor class, I think, is trying to say there might be a little kind of funny. The hydrometeor classification might be pinging on some hail, but again, that might also be some of the ground clutter affecting the correlation coefficient computation. But yeah, just heavy rain all through here, light to moderate rain, heavy rain. So again, this is, yeah, no, it certainly looks like it. Certainly looked the part. And again, some very strong winds. I mean, this is this is nothing to shake a stick at. It's very strong winds moving through MSC right now, and then we're starting to get some of this heavy, some of the rain band moving very quickly. Now it's about ready to, another part crossing I-95 up to north of Walterboro up to St. George in Dorchester County, and this is paralleling. I want to say that is Highway 15. Yep, US 15. So this is a I-95 US 15. You're going to start to see some. Heavy rain here pretty shortly, and probably some gusty winds as well. The polygon that you see here is the special weather statement polygon too. Always important to call that out. I don't want this is kind of a light tan. This is just the special weather statement area. This is the area where the Weather Service has kind of called out the best risk for 45 to 55 mile an hour winds, which makes real sense when you see a bow echo like this. I mean, even though this is a tropical system, the same rules apply. And you see a bow echo like this. And one of the things that we're going to want to keep an eye on the leading edge of that is, perhaps the potential for, for maybe something trying to spin up. It's worth noting that I literally have so many screens here that I have to turn behind me to look at them. But James, if you have the mesoanalysis up, possibly, it's worth noting that we are running into a small area of slightly elevated significant tornado parameter. Again, 0.5. Okay, that's not really too much to write home about.
In the same cell? Where are you talking?
Just in the Charleston Tri-County area, there's a little bullseye of a 0.5 significant tornado parameter. And okay, I mean, and that is not an insignificant amount. That is not an insignificant number, I would say, but it's not exactly blowing the lid off of things. But again, as we've been talking about today, with the potential for quick little spin-ups, certainly something that we're going to want to keep an eye on, especially as we've been destabilizing here for the last little bit. In fact, we probably have the cloudiest part of the day about to come up right now, and it's still sunny at the beaches. I mean, that's we've still got a fair bit of sunshine at the beaches here for the next little bit. So,
just going to prime and fuel the atmosphere.
Correct. And as I say that, I start to see the lightning begin to ping a little bit more. I'm looking at the geostationary lightning mapper on board the satellite, and I'm starting to see a couple flashes show up near the Colleton and Hampton County borders. So once again, I mean, there's Charleston and there's I-77. I mean, there's big differences right now. This is at the College of Charleston. This is downtown Charleston, but you can also see, it is windy. It is very windy, but you can see the leading fringe now of some of those higher clouds associated with this convective rain band beginning to move in, and it's going to cloud up in a hurry, and and it could start raining in a hurry. However, I will also say that this is that compared to some of the deluges we've had in the last few days, this is not too bad. And the other part too. The other part that I'm, that is hopeful is that we are approaching high tide at 4:55 in Charlton Harbor, and we are dry. That is a very good thing. That is a very good question.
Maybe you can locate these locations for us, Jared, from Sydney here, looking back over towards I-95.
Yeah. So for you. So we have a question about will the storm in Yemisi eventually make it over Hanahan? And I would suspect that, again, these are little bursts here, but on the trajectory here, if we were to extrapolate it out that far, I mean, it could get close. But that being said, I mean, these little bursts of wind are going to come and go. And, and again, I would not be shocked to see stuff maybe redevelop out ahead of it in this little neck of the woods here. So that's certainly something to watch. There is enough dry air to where these could probably spit out a little bit of outflow boundaries, which we usually see just in typical summertime thunderstorms. But in this particular case, I wouldn't be shocked if maybe we saw a boundary kick out ahead of it and maybe fire up some additional storms. In fact, there's some evidence of that happening now near Monk's Corner. So yeah, so there's a little outflow boundary there. There's a few showers beginning to pop on it. So I suspect that regardless of whether this specific cell segment makes it in hand to hand, there's a pretty decent chance that you're going to see some decent wind and rain. However, I guess the good news here is that right now we're not seeing anything too severe. As we tilt further up into the storm, about 600 feet, we start to see these winds come up a little bit more, but still relatively within sane boundaries. Again, we classify a severe thunderstorm as a storm with 58 mile an hour winds. Now, all that said, there's always a caveat, and the caveat today is that we have been getting rained on like crazy here in Charleston. And the soils are dry and the soils are wet. And so it may not take as much wind to push over trees. So I will say that. So, so just because there may not be a warning out for your location doesn't mean that isolated tree damage cannot occur. So it's certainly something that we'll want to keep an eye on as time goes on. And again, seeing a little bit of lightning in this activity as it's beginning to, maybe perk up a little bit more along the Colleton and Hampton line. But it's a decent looking, looking surge. We're just going to need to wait and see what happens. But if we have showers developing out ahead of it, then I would honestly say that if these can get strong enough, then that might be your best shot, honestly, at a little stronger winds. But again, I think it's important to note too, we have no watches in effect. The severe weather risk is low, and as actually, as we get further into the evening, we should see that tornado whisk. There you go. That's where I've been all day. Funny. The tornado risk begin to dwindle a little bit as the circulation passes more to our north and then starts getting east of here. Still could drag a trough, still could pull down some gusty winds, but the helicity that we would need could drop off a little bit. So again, we're not out of the woods by any stretch. I think we got a long way to go before we can say that. Just because it's sunny right now in downtown Charleston does not mean it's going to stay sunny. I would venture a guess that we're probably going to see it get a little busier there sooner rather than later. So again, just something to watch.
Looking around at our camera network, trying to find something that's not sunny, but these cells are fairly discrete right now. So you do it that got that one line in coastal South Carolina, and then you've got these other like discrete cells elsewhere moving across North Carolina. Interesting. We have no tornado warnings here at 4:47 p.m.
And we'd love to keep and we'd love to keep it that way, and hopefully it stays that way. But we have to understand that the atmosphere is such that it may not stay that way, and so we want people to stay weather aware through tomorrow morning, really, because a small possibility of a tornado. I would still say by far the biggest concern right now is the flooding threat. Flash flood watches up and down the Carolinas ahead of this, and they're placed for good reason. And so I want people to, make sure that they are, listening for those warnings, for those flood advisories. Even, we talked about this the other night, right here on the Carolina Weather Group. We were live talking about it. In some places, water on the road is not automatically a flash flood warning. So you may not get a buzz to your phone if a flood advisory is issued. If a flood advisory is issued, that is just as good to say that water could be on the road. A flash flood warning is a specific amount of water or a time period in which water will build up very quickly. But do not sleep on flood advisories, and we're going to make sure that we, we'll talk about those as they come out as needed. So, again, something to watch. I would say that talking again about the good news for Charleston Metro is that we are getting very close now to high tide. We're basically there. Obviously, we're going to want to watch the departures on this a little bit, Just make sure that everything stays in bounds. But but again, I guess the only wild card right now is what timing and intensity will the rain be by the time it reaches here, and could it re-intensify very quickly, as we have seen? It can just go like that. So certainly a lot to watch here. Still not out of the woods, but so far so good.
That is the voice of Jared Smith in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm James Brierton in Charlotte, North Carolina. We are continuing to track what is currently Tropical Depression Claudette. Take a look right now at real-time bulletins across the Carolinas. And actually, let me see if I can get this to refresh, because this is still showing a tornado warning that I know is old. And thus, I want to show you, because at 5 o'clock here, just shy of, we do have some new advisories out. This will remind us. Jared, can you see that? It looks frozen on my side. That video coming through okay?
I've got you.
Okay. All right. In red, we have tropical storm warnings all along the Outer Banks. A little bit inland as well, too. These go until further notice all along the coast of North Carolina, extending into South Carolina just past Myrtle Beach, but shy of Charleston Pleasant. We have that flash flood warning right now that's up for Columbia. And that's a perfect example of what all this green means. That is the flash flood watch. And that's where we can most certainly expect to see isolated flash flooding as we go on through the night. Again, this is all associated with Tropical Depression Claudette. You can see on our outlook from the Hurricane Center right now, it's the only game in town for the entire Atlantic Basin for the next 5 days. And if we take a look at this very interesting storm track, the forecast cone from the National Hurricane Center over the next few days, we'll expect to see this area of circulation continue to move across the Carolina of tonight through the overnight hours, when it could re-intensify into a tropical storm as it approaches the Carolina coast. And that, in fact, is why we have those tropical storm warnings up for the coast. And Jared, if you give me just a second here, the other thing I want to show, and I feel like this is significant, because we experienced this a little bit here in the Charlotte area last night, is the arrival times of winds, right? So they're out ahead. We're in that northeastern quadrant, top right quadrant, as we're watching all this. So, expect to see gusty winds actually roll in before some of this precipitation. It was 9 o'clock last night, and I was picking up stuff blowing around my backyard.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, rounding the south side of this also, there's a decent little low-level jet that's been blowing throughout the morning. It's rounding the bottom of Claudette's circulation, and this has been enhancing some of the wind gusts that we've seen here in the Charleston area, and certainly places up and down the coast where the sun has come out. We're tapping into that low-level jet, and some of those gusts are being brought down to the surface. So again, 20 to 30 mile an hour gusts outside of thunderstorms, certainly a possibility. And then obviously when you get into that more vigorous mixing with a thunderstorm, a convective situation, then that is going to cause, that will bring even stronger winds to the surface. Fingers crossed we stay with very few damage reports, few if any damage reports. That's the goal here. That's what we're after.
And of course, if you happen to observe any severe weather in your neck of the woods, and it is safe to do so, you can send it to the National Weather Service on Twitter, #NCWX if you're in North Carolina, or #SCWX if you are in South Carolina. That's, of course, typically the easiest way to get some of that information on over to the Weather Service. Again, James Brierton here with Jared Smith. We have no tornado warnings to tell you about right now. The only active warning we have from the National Hurricane Center is the flash flood warning in Columbia, and the tropical storm warnings that are up along the coast for effects from Claudette that are really expected later on tonight. So if you live along the North Carolina coast, South Carolina coast through Myrtle Beach, watch for onshore flooding associated with this storm, because right of circulation, last I checked, still remains off to our west. And so although a lot of this rain is moving through, when those onshore winds start blowing back out us later and tropical storm force winds, we've got to watch for that coastal flooding. And we'll have our Carolina Weather Net streaming all night long. Once again, you can find it free of charge, no cable login required. So it's free and open into the world via the Carolina Weather Group, and that'll be on all night long. You can get real-time warnings from the National Hurricane Center, monitoring time conditions and all that jazz. And then when severe weather warrants, Jared, myself, or other Carolina Weather Group team will be along for live coverage on the Carolina Weather Net and streaming across the sister platforms of the Carolina Weather Group as well, too. Jared, you've been at this now for, I think, more than 2 hours watching some tornado warnings across the area.
Yeah, it's been busy. It certainly has been busy. I guess the good news is that, I continue to scan for reports of any actual tornadoes, and that hasn't happened, which is good news for everybody. The Weather Service guys, they might feel a little sting on their false alarm rate, but then again, with tropical tornadoes, you can never be too careful because they can spin up and down very quickly, and sometimes you just gotta say when. A couple things I wanted to point out, James, is that when looking at I'm looking at the observations as we come up on 5 o'clock, and it looks like the center of circulation is probably now roughly. I would say, hang on, let me get that near.
Sometimes the easiest way to see it, satellite, right?
Yeah, satellite is one way, but I'm also just looking at the surface observations too, and it's crossed into South Carolina. It looks like it's somewhere in Anderson or Abbeville or Greenwood counties.
Okay, so just came on over not too long ago then.
So it just came on over, and I bet you're going to have an updated graphic there too, because the Hurricane Center just put out the new advisory, the 5 o'clock advisory, and at the 5 o'clock advisory, they have it located at 34.2 north, 82.5 west, 80 miles west of Columbia, 260 miles west of Cape Fear, max sustained winds at 30 miles per hour, moving east-northeast at 17 miles per hour. That's been really consistent throughout the day. Minimum pressure, 1,009 millibars, also very consistent, about 29.80 inches of mercury. For those of you
we'll keep
who
hitting
like
refresh on our cone here. Oh, this is actually the 5 o'clock cone right now. I hit refresh and up it came. So here's the 5 o'clock cone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is going to have good.
Not drastically unchanged much in terms of course. No. As you mentioned, it does show that area of circulation right along that Georgia-South Carolina line. You can see it on satellite. It's that central area where all the clouds are orbiting around. And then, again, the National Hurricane Center is still sticking with that strengthening back into a tropical storm by the time we get to 2 a.m. Monday, late tonight. So that could happen as early as Fayetteville?
Maybe. And this is interesting. I have never, I got to tell you, I'm still trying to figure out the last time I saw the Hurricane Center forecast, not only forecast in general, but forecast for days in advance. Now, this has been the forecast for several days that Claudette maximum sustained winds will increase to 40 miles an hour. Now, I have a couple theories on this, and I suspect that, there's a little. Well, there's a boundary to the north, okay, and what happens is sometimes you can get some baroclinic forcing on this guy, and basically all that is that it's just a tightened gradient, and that can help pinwheel up that storm a little bit. Additionally, you're going to have a very clean feed of moisture off of the Atlantic coming in from, we're not going to be inhibited by the Gulf or anything like that. We're going to have the moisture coming in off the Atlantic. You see the feeder bands. You can see some big blowups of thunderstorms offshore. So it's very possible that some of these feeder bands may actually get in there and start to tighten this up. Again, kind of a small circulation, kind of a weak circulation, not necessarily as susceptible to problems as, say, a larger, the tropical storm or hurricane circulation. Weirder things have happened. Again, I can't remember the first. I think this is the first time I've ever seen the Hurricane Center specifically call for a storm to jump from a depression to a storm on land. But it's 2021. Who knows? I mean, this is just all
the rules went out the window last year.
I suppose I could bring an informed perspective to this by reading their discussion. And they do, and they do note a couple things too, is that, that they are noticing that the winds are starting to increase a little bit. We're actually starting to see an increase in the winds. I'm just excerpting from their discussions here. We
did get a storm report.
Okay.
We do have one storm report that has come in from the National Weather Service. And let me turn off my satellite so I don't put chat on the air. But it is in the Columbia area, as you're talking about winds. Oh, I'm sorry. This is flooding. This is a flooding storm report. Richland County, South Carolina Highway Patrol reports flooded roadway at 2 Notch Road and Windover. Windover? I doubt it's Windover Street.
Yeah. That sounds like from what Two Notch is a pretty notorious trouble spot, just in general. So that's not horribly surprising to hear out of Columbia. So yeah, I mean that's I would expect that for sure. So again, I think the thing that we should be most cognizant of here at this point is that water is certainly going to be the main issue. Wind is a potential factor in very isolated locations. Tornado threat is there. It is not substantial enough to warrant a watch. There are no active tornado warnings right now, knock on wood. Mm-hmm. So far we're getting through this okay. We have a few hours left. We certainly, there's certainly plenty of time for problems to develop, and as with these storms, they can develop very quickly. So it's something that we're going to want to keep a close eye on over the next hour. But again, I think right now, just get ready for some rain, and we're going to see some of this heavier rain with some brief gusty winds mixed in. Weather Service in Charleston just put out a special weather statement a little while ago for kind of the let me get the polygon here, and I'll pull that up on the screen. Just I will pull this up here, so you should see my radar here. So there's that. So remember that if you were here earlier, we were talking about a pretty nice little gust of wind here, a little bow echo that's come through Walterboro now. Again, it's moving very quickly to the northeast. This is headed for Cottageville next, and eventually Ridgeville, Somerville, Ladson, places in other locations along 17A. So there's certainly something to watch for maybe a few downed trees possibly, especially given the recent rainfall that we've had, but also some very heavy rain. Looking at the precip rate data, which is not updated just yet to the latest. Let me see if I can. That actually has stopped updating, so I need to fix that. But anyway, we could see some rates. This is what happens. This is live. We rotate this panel out and look at that. And the rain rates here, I'm looking at a different source of radar here. So please bear with me as I call this out. But we have, rain rates, 3 to 5 inches an hour approaching Walterboro on the edge of this line here. So Walterboro, Thayer, Stokes, Ritter, come through Hendersonville now. This is headed towards Round Oak, Cottageville, Norman Landing, Givens. So again, this is the good news is that unlike the 3 to 5 inch rain rates that we've had, this is going to be brief, and as this is actually moving, we will need to keep an eye on this, as this goes through. But again, getting through this okay. We're just going to have to keep an eye on it. Right now, I would say the most intense activity is in eastern North Carolina. That's where we're seeing the coldest cloud tops, lots of lightning. The strongest thunderstorms are certainly there. If we're going to, I would suspect that if we're going to see another tornado warning anywhere, it's going to be in eastern North Carolina, just with the vigor of these thunderstorms. That's moving through there. And just I'm going to pull my radar back here. Whoops, that was definitely not radar. That was a black screen.
We didn't see it.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that again, when we're looking at this, we're not seeing the, we are not seeing the big pockmarks of rotation that we were seeing maybe an hour ago. Lined up here. We are seeing some outflow boundaries. We are seeing, some broad rotation, but we're not necessarily seeing anything that is calling out to us as like, oh, this is about to be warned, which is a lot better than where we were, for sure. When we started it was getting really busy.
It was, and you don't know what we don't know for later. So I think we're going to go ahead here in a few moments and take a break from our live coverage on the Carolina Weather Group because we don't have any of those active tornado warnings. We do have a flash flood warning up for Columbia. We're keeping an eye on it. No initial significant reports coming in, unlike last weekend in Charleston, where buildings were having foot plus water accumulating inside of them. So we'll keep an eye on that flash flood warning. We do, of course, have those tropical storm warnings that are up for the North Carolina coast, South Carolina coast, and including Myrtle Beach, but stopping shy of the Charleston area as we're continuing to watch what is currently Tropical Depression Claudette, but forecast to once again become Tropical Storm Claudette as we move on through the rest of tonight through the overnight hours. And so especially along those coastlines, so you can see them in blue there, that's where the tropical storm warnings are. That's where during the overnight hours and early tomorrow morning, you're going to want to stay very, very vigilant as we're continuing to track this tropical system, the C name of this 2021 hurricane season, but the first to impact us here in the Carolinas. And we're all getting reacclimated with how these tropical systems work.
Yeah. One last thing I wanted to call out before we jump off the air, James, is that for Columbia, we just mentioned a flash flood warning in effect in Columbia. The good news is that the heaviest rain is moving out. That is excellent news. And it looks like that is probably going to do it for the very heavy rain in the Columbia metro area. So at this point, the call to action is, turn around, don't drown. But as we have the radar up here, James has got the radar here. It looks, it certainly looks a lot better in the Columbia area. Certainly some showers behind it, maybe some brief downpours, but the rain band has now moved off to the northeast. So that's some good news for Columbia proper. Again, we'll see some showers in there. The center of this storm is not exactly a fierce eye wall or anything like that. So, despite that, so far so good. There are going to be some flooded roads, and we're just going to ask all of you to avoid those flooded roads. And then, if you see a flooded road after you turn around and it's safe, let us know. Send out a tweet, SCWX, tweet NWS Columbia if you're in that area. They could use the ground truth.
They certainly could. And here's what you're going to need for the rest of tonight, because we can't rule out the chance for some nocturnal flooding or a nocturnal tornado warning. Make sure you have a couple ways to get warnings, including some sort of NOAA weather radio in addition to your phone. You want to have at least 2 ways, 3 if you can. And here's what you can expect from us at the Carolina Weather Group. So our nonstop Carolina WeatherNet channel will continue to stream on YouTube throughout the night, bringing you real-time conditions from the National Weather Service, a look at current conditions and sky cams. You can find that free of charge. No cable or satellite subscription is needed. You can find that streaming right now. Just search Carolina Weather Group on YouTube and look for our daily video, which streams live the Carolina WeatherNet. Then in the case of tornado warnings or other life-threatening emergencies, Jared, myself, or others will be along across the sister platforms of the Carolina Weather Group, including on Facebook, to bring you those limited bulletins and that coverage as warranted. And that's what we've been doing here for the last 2 or 3 hours or so. But right now, we're going to take a break. If you're watching on the Carolina WeatherNet, we'll return you to regular scheduled programming in just a moment. If you're on one of these standalone streams, like and subscribe so that when we come back with updates, you'll be notified of our returned live coverage. And we haven't had to activate it yet, Jared, but good reminder here in the start of the hurricane season that if we ever get into a situation where we're seeing widespread power outages or maybe down utilities such as home internet and people relying solely on their phones, we will start using our audio feed of the Carolina Weather Group podcast to distribute emergency information. So we haven't had to activate that for this storm, but you can always find the Carolina Weather Group on whatever app it is you use to get weekly podcasts, and you can find our show and tropical updates as needed in a situation like that. Luckily, knock on wood, I don't think that's going to be needed for this storm, but it'll be there in our toolbox if ever we need it. So Jared Smith, thank you so much for bringing us through this afternoon coverage of Tropical Depression Claudette. I'm James Brierton in Charlotte. That's Jared in Charleston. We'll return you to regular scheduled programming here on the Carolina WeatherNet momentarily.